Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for another Fermented Friday from the Brewers Association of Maryland. I'm Jim Bachman, Communications Director of BAM. We welcome you for another great week of conversations. I am going to be joined today by Tony at Saints Row Brewing. Really excited about this talk. Saints Row is in the process of going through their third anniversary. They're celebrating later this month, and I can't wait to hear about all the great things they have going on. A couple of things before we get started. As always, Maryland businesses are open for your business. Our breweries throughout the state are ready for you to come through, place your beer orders to go for delivery. We'd love to see you spend time in any tap rooms or in outdoor spaces at breweries that are offering that. So check in with your favorite brewery, see what they have going on, and see how you can support your favorite local brewers. On top of that, tomorrow is one of our wonderful Buy Maryland Seafood days, as is been proclaimed by Governor Hogan. So please support some Maryland breweries if you're going to have some seafood this weekend. We've got some awesome crabs in the state, obviously, rockfish, oysters. Go out there, show your support for the people who are bringing seafood to our tables throughout the state, and celebrate that with some great Maryland beer. I'll actually ask Tony what his recommendation is for maybe a crab feast and some beer from Saints Row. So if you have questions about this chat, throw them in the comments. We want to answer your questions. We want you to be a part of this talk. And if you'd like to know what we're doing, check us out at marylandbeer.org. Without further ado, Tony, how are you this afternoon?
Good. How's it going, Jim?
It's going very well. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you on. We're cranking through breweries. We're cranking through breweries throughout the state, so we had to make another visit back to the Rockville area and Montgomery County, and you guys were on the list. So you drew the short straw by saying yes. You get to spend an hour with me.
No, I probably lucked out. It's better than being working in the back.
There you go.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
As you guys are looking down the pipe at your third anniversary, why don't you kind of give people who may not have been to Saints Row yet or may not know a whole lot about you, because your capacity started small. You guys have always been kind of like a boutique deal. Let everybody know what you're up to and where you came from.
Yeah, so I started in the industry back in late 2011, early 2012. I started working in Baltimore. Started as an intern, worked my way up through the kind of chain of command and learned the brewing side, production, cellaring, and then while I was doing that, I was also involved with the American Brewers Guild. So I was learning the textbook kind of science behind brewery management, fermentation, cellaring, packaging, things like that. And I worked in Baltimore until about beginning of 2016, and decided it was kind of a lot of work for me to kind of be commuting from Montgomery County. I've kind of been born and raised in the DC area, so I was commuting from Gaithersburg all the way out to Baltimore, and it was just, the hours were getting longer. I was getting more and more responsibility, but my wife and I were trying to start a family, so we decided that I would leave my job in Baltimore and kind of just stick closer to home. Took on a couple like long-term substitution teaching jobs, but I still wanted to kind of be involved in the industry, and we just kind of decided that we would kind of set up our own little space, our own little shop here, so we can do what we love, my wife and I, and kind of support our family in that way. And so we decided to open Saints Row Brewing, and it's a pretty little small mom and pop shop. We run a 3.5 barrel brew house. Most of our stuff is almost always, I would say about 95% of our product pre-COVID was kind of sold in-house. Now everything is sold in-house as of right now. And it's been good. It's been fun. I'm happy to finally be able to do what I love and do what I enjoy for a living, being involved in the community I grew up in. Like I said, I was born in DC, but I've lived in Gaithersburg pretty much my whole life. And be able to do what I enjoy, in the backyard of my friends, my neighbors, people that I've known for years. It's kind of been like a real joy and a pleasure. And also raising my 2 daughters in this area where I grew up and having a business that supports that kind of dream. It's been a lot of fun. So
that's a really rewarding thing to hear when we're looking at, how this industry is kind of proliferating everywhere around us. We see people who, seek out places that they think are going to be great locations for their brewery to operate. And, very, very seldom do I hear the story of, this is where I was kind of raised, and this is where I want to have my family raised and stake my claim to the business here.
Right. Yeah. I think that was one of the things that we've talked about it multiple times. We've worked, we've had conversations with Chris from Uncapped. with a couple of different conversations with other people in the area. And one of the things that we felt that, I mean, you've seen it in the last, we've been open for 3 years. And since we opened, like 5 other breweries have opened in Montgomery County. I feel like when we first set out to open, we thought that Montgomery County was very underrepresented and underappreciated. There's so much here. There's so much culture. There's so much to be experienced here in our county. And so it's kind of great to be able to kind of bring people back home. We found that a lot of people were kind of leaving, they're going to the DCs, Baltimore's, Fredericks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we felt like there was like a niche here in Montgomery County that people were kind of missing. And they didn't realize that there's a great opportunity here. And again, I love where I'm from. Like, I'm from here. I was born and raised here. And so maybe it's a little bit of a soapbox for me, but, it's good to see that people are recognizing that there's a lot that we have to offer here.
I think it's also very important to think about the fact that as this industry starts to fill out and we see more and more breweries opening, there's always a lot of room for more breweries to come into a community. All it does is makes the industry look a little bit better when you have more people competing and showing what's going on in the industry and doing it well. Right. But it also offers diversity of thought and ideas behind what you're putting out there and gives the consumer really great options. And Montgomery County being what it is, a place with, really great access to resources in terms of money, the ability to get onto the road and get your beer into great places, tons of restaurant accounts, right, retailers everywhere, and you have this huge population. It's very befuddling to me. I live in Frederick, to see how Montgomery County is kind of playing catch up with its density of brewer population. Because in Frederick, we've seen this huge boom, and it seems like the sky's the limit in Montgomery County right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Montgomery County is realizing that there's a great opportunity here for letting us brewers kind of do what we need to do to be successful. If you talk about at the county level, some of the changes that have gone on with liquor laws and things like that, like self-distribution was a huge thing for Montgomery County breweries and whatnot. Now that that's kind of been loosened a little bit, you're seeing this huge boom. I think it's taking place. I don't think we're obviously, the whole pandemic has kind of put the brakes on some growth, but I think you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out in the years to come, especially Montgomery County. Like you said, the sky's the limit for us. There's a great wealth of opportunity here and resources for this community. So I think we're going to see, it is crazy that we're playing catch up, but there were certain roadblocks that kind of had to get past before you could see really the beer scene here start taking off, and it's going to take off. When we opened in 2017, we were the 5th brewery in Montgomery County, I believe, and then there's been 5 more, I think, added since then. So it's really starting to grow, and I think we'll continue to see that. Once we kind of once we all get our feet back underneath us.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see kind of how Montgomery County has developed in terms of a location for Maryland beer, because and if I recall, I think Denizens was the first non-chain affiliated brewery to stake a claim in Montgomery County. And
I think it's either that. There's a long history. You had Banghound Ale Works way before the pint law was passed. Yeah. And then I think it was Sandlocks and Denizens around the same time.
Yeah, and the dominoes started falling like pretty quickly right after that, and it really seemed like the county leadership jumped on board and was like, "This is something that we need to be able to support." Because
for sure.
You don't want to see great revenue opportunities missed, and you don't want to see people leaving your county where you have all of these great things to go explore other places. So, from a business perspective for the county, it was a great decision to get behind the industry.
For sure. I totally agree.
For you guys, are you seeing a good amount of people who are traveling in from either DC or from Northern Virginia to see what's happening there?
I think so. I think one of the things that we have to preface before, answering that question is we are such a unique destination, and I think for the most part for Maryland, but also for Montgomery County, because we're such a small boutique kind of shop that we're not seeing the same type of draws as a lot of other larger breweries are, because we're not in distribution. So we pretty much at this point have been pretty much just word of mouth. We've had very limited distribution, and our distribution has been to very localized accounts because our focus has always been, we are kind of like a community tap room. So we're kind of nestled in the neighborhood. And we're really trying to focus on providing the product and the services for the people in our backyard, essentially. So it's kind of been like a slow growth for us as far as drawing in crowds from outside of our immediate area, but it's all been very organic growth. And so we're starting to see people like, people coming out from Columbia, Frederick, Virginia, Baltimore, and all those, DC. And so we are starting to see that, at least on our end. And I think one of the things to our benefit is we are right down the street from a pretty large production brewery. True Respite is maybe a mile and a half up the street from us. And so having them up the street from us is drawing attention to this little corridor we have right here, which has been helpful for both of us. We get a lot of cross traffic. And then we also have a distillery right up the street as well. Twin Valley Distillers right up the street. So we've got like a really interesting little craft corridor right here on Goody Drive. And so we're starting to see, at least on our end, we are drawing more and more crowds outside of the immediate kind of Montgomery County, Rockville area.
That's great to hear, because the whole goal is to get people who may not be your neighbor to also come and support the business that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We want to provide a product and service for our immediate neighbors, but we're always welcome to, we're happy to welcome anybody and everybody, right? Like we want people to, that was the thing about setting up Saints Row. We want people to come to realize that Montgomery County and, Rockville, Gaithersburg, where I'm from, is a place with a lot of, fun to be had. There's a lot of great stuff here to do. And so any way that we can kind of play a part in drawing people into this area and kind of highlighting, again, it's kind of selfish. Like, look how great my home is, like, this is where I'm from. I want people to see that, and I want them to be able to realize that. So we're happy to be a little, a small part of that.
Well, and it's also interesting in a place that's so kind of built on, at least in recent history, the commuter culture, to now have industry and manufacturing occurring like in the backyard of these great communities, because it's really showing that our neighborhood is part of making something vital, which is really, really cool when you think about it.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss to not make the correction. I totally forgot about like Summit Station and their transition into growlers and all that. So,
right.
I mean, there's a much richer history in like a little corner of Montgomery County, but for the community as a whole, I think a lot of things started happening as soon as we saw Seven Locks and Denizens and those brands like that.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So your inspiration was great. It's a place that you've lived. You and your wife felt like this was something you needed to do. It sounds like things are going pretty well. Third anniversary is on the horizon. What do you guys have as your philosophy behind the beer, and what's motivating you to create all the really unique and wonderful offerings that you're bringing to the community?
Yeah, and when we first opened up, I think this is the same case for a lot of brewers or owners, and in the area. Like, you have an idea of what you want to set out to do, and then the market and the people you're serving kind of dictate, is that actually going to be what you do? So when we first opened up, we really wanted to strictly, and fortunately, to their credit, like Silver Branch is doing a great job of like being like, these are really traditional styles and they're nailing them. Elder Pine's doing a great job with nailing these like nice lagers and whatnot. And we really wanted to focus on that. Because that was the training I had, was very traditional styles, German style lagers, things like that. But being such a small, unique kind of little boutique shop, we found that there were certain things that people really wanted to get their hands on that we needed to kind of turn over more frequently. And so we've kind of switched our approach, and essentially it's just like, what do our community want? What do they want to see? And obviously, you're seeing a lot of driving factors. I mean, there's certain hype beers that go well, and so we'll sprinkle those in our taps. But we also try to stay true to styles. So we have a couple different lagers on tap right now that are very, obviously we have an Oktoberfest, which we just tapped this week. We have a pale and filtered lager that we tapped a couple weeks ago. But then we also have a Kolsch that we have on tap right now, which was a slight little tweak to it. We made it like a slightly tart Kolsch. So we soured it for less than 24 hours, and then we added some fresh zest to it, just to kind of enhance that profile that you already get from the traditional Kolsch yeast. And so I think really our motivation is trying to provide our consumer with what they're wanting, because we do have pretty much direct access to our consumer. Like, we are, for the most part, about 98% direct sales to our consumer. Like, we have a tap room, and our tap room is pretty much the only place you can get our beer as of right now. And so we're pretty much really in touch, and we got a feel for the pulse of what people are wanting in our neighborhood, in our backyard, and we're trying to meet that need. To that end, we're also my family's from Central America, So one of the things that we try to do is really try to tie in some of those flavors, some of those influences into some of our beers. So we are right down the street from Mayorga Organics. So one of the beers we'll be talking about is the Cuban Coffee Milk Stout. So like trying to, highlight these cultures and these flavors that are right now, I don't want to say underrepresented, but are not necessarily at the forefront of what people's mind or people are thinking for craft beer. So that's kind of our approach to, our lineup. We do like to experiment here and there with, obviously we have a slightly tart Kolsch, things like that. So we like to have fun with it, but also the bottom line is trying to make sure that the people who are coming in here are dictating what's going to be on tap.
I'm fascinated by the approach that you have to just the sensibility of what your palate has experienced. You bring a background of culture that not everybody has. You have more, anytime you have more diversity of input when it comes to your experience, you're able to present something that's totally unique and can embrace a much wider audience. So that's awesome. And I can't wait to hear about more of these little interplays you have with some of these beers that are on this lineup today, because they sound so fascinating to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun. We've been having, I loved what I was doing since I started, mopping floors and whatnot, and I'm still having the time of my life. So it's just been a joy to be able to do this, and thankfully our community is supporting me so that I can do it professionally and still make a living.
So I think that you may be only the second person that I've met who went through the American Brewers Guild training. That's out of a Vermont program, right?
That's true. Yeah. So it's an online program. I don't even remember how long the program was. I think it's either 6 or 9 months. And at the end of your program, you have a residency in Vermont at Drop-In Brewing there. And so I was doing that program while I was interning in Baltimore. And upon my return of finishing my week residency, I pretty much got thrown to the wolves and had to brew my first beer all solo. And so it was fun. Yeah, I did that. I think, if I remember correctly, so when it was Growlers, Brett Kimbrough, I think, also went through the Brewers Guild. But I don't know who else in Maryland also went through that program. There might be a brewer at Heavy Seas.
Okay.
There may, and again, like it's not a huge program. It's not Siebel, you know what I mean? It's not all these big programs, but it's kind of something to get you some book smarts if you're already plugged into like an internship at a brewery, or if you're looking to get into the industry. It's a great opportunity. It's more affordable than like a big program. And it worked for me. Like I was newlywed, like my wife and I had been married for maybe a month or two before I quit my job to go intern at a brewery and then take on this program. So it worked out for us.
There's nothing like the experience that you'll gain doing it hands-on, but anytime you can get that educational background and you just get to bounce the idea off of somebody whose job it is to give you the knowledge, like that's incredible.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, the hands-on experience was amazing. There's certain things you can't learn until you actually have to physically do it. You can read all about, pressure differentials whenever you're having to clean or transfer a tank, and the safety issues that go on with things like that. But until you actually do it, you're not really it's not going to stick. So it was great to have both those things going on at the same time. Getting the book smarts and, having these, having to read extensively on the science behind everything that I was doing, and then actually getting to physically do it was a great opportunity that I had. So really happy I did it the way I did it, and just worked out really well.
So prior to COVID and whatever your post-COVID plans might look like, what kind of staff are you operating at Saints Row, and what can people expect when they come to visit you?
Yeah, so we are actually really small staff. I think there might be 8 of us on staff right now. We have myself, I pretty much run back of house, so all production, all of our kind of social media, things like that. I kind of run all of that. My wife does take care of a lot of our admin stuff when it comes to like paperwork, filing, taxes, things like that. And then we have a lot of front of house stuff. So it started out when we first opened up, it was actually only 3 of us. So it was me, my brother, and his wife, his fiance at the time. They got married since then. But it started really small. It was, they were working part-time. And since then we've slowly kind of grown as our business has grown. We've added like 5 other bartenders and an assistant brewer. So anytime you come kind of check us out, you're pretty much going to know who you're going to see. A really small kind of tight-knit community here at the brewery in our tap room. And, people pick certain days of the week that they want to come because they like certain bartenders more than others. You know what I mean? Like people know it's and we've said it jokingly, but it's kind of like Rockville's little Cheers, like, yeah, it feels like people know your name. Like, and that was one of the things that like our bartenders have done a really great job. It's like the whole personable, that customer service thing has really been a huge selling point for us and a sticking point for us. Like, we really want people to come in and feel like they're remembered and they're welcome to, like, if we are your backyard kind of pub, then like we make sure it feels like that whenever you walk in the door. So it's been fun. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the comment that I just shared from Yosef, but we had some really nice Maryland lineage involved with the American Brewers Guild. Steve Parks, one of the original brewers at Oxford, apparently is the guy running the program there. So that's awesome.
Steve Parks. He was a great pleasure to work with. Steve taught a lot of the online classes, and then he runs the spot up at Drop In Middlebury, and he's a great guy to work. He's very knowledgeable and then very much willing to share. And it's kind of crazy how people talk about Maryland beer is kind of catching up with it. Like, nationwide, there's a lot of roots in Maryland. You talk about guys like Steve Parks and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
I think a lot of people kind of look at Maryland's beer history and they didn't see, 10 or 15 different brands that all took off at the same time in the early days of craft. But if you go back to the mid 90s, I mean, there was a lot happening, and we still have a lot of breweries that are open who are celebrating their 25th, 26th anniversaries this year.
Right. Yeah.
My goodness, how is it that this industry has been like flooring with such great quality breweries just pumping out product for almost 30 years? And it's like people are just now catching on to the wave.
Yeah. I don't know, but I'm happy they're catching on. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm very happy. Yeah. It's
exactly
making the industry a little bit more fertile for all of these new businesses with new great ideas to come in and see how you guys can, you're 3 years into it, but there are brands behind you who are like, we're excited to be a part of this, and you're bringing new ideas to the forefront, and it's great for everybody.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're really excited to kind of be seeing the growth that's happening in Maryland and, in Montgomery County. It's fascinating to see, even in the midst of all this craziness that's going on around us in the last 6-7 months or whatnot. And it's just, it's cool to watch.
Was your intent when you first opened always to be a destination where you would be doing a majority of your business over your own counter rather than somebody who is distributing into wholesale?
Yeah. I think that was kind of we've set up, we could have gone either route, right? We could have gone to a larger format. But at the end of the day, we really kind of wanted to be a brewery for our family, friends, and neighbors, and do it in a way that we could sustain our family life. Like, that was really the motivating factor. Like, I love this business. I love this industry. But like, I left Baltimore because it was at the expense of my family life, right? And so I wanted to be able to continue doing what I'm doing and what I enjoy, but not at the expense of being able to be home and things like that. And obviously, like, I have an almost 4-year-old and an almost 1-year-old. Like, I was really focused on making sure I was trying to make time to be home with them and raise my family in my neighborhood, And so I think we've always kind of wanted to approach our business as one that's primarily taproom focused, over-the-counter direct sales. It also kind of keeps us more in touch with the people who are consuming our beverage. And so we've always kind of wanted to keep that as our business model. And fortunately enough, even amidst, the pandemic, we've been able to continue that process. Whenever things had to get shut down in March, we started direct sales right away, so you can order online and then come pick up. And so being able to keep doing that, I think we've been able to continue our kind of the feel people have or the experience they have with us, even in the midst of these difficult times.
I think that's a very novel approach. And if anybody who's watching this either live or later wants to know how you can achieve such a wonderful work-life balance and operate your own business, be around your family when you want to be there, and love what you're doing, reach out to Tony. He'll give you all the secrets.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth the time. I mean, the first 6 months of the business were really difficult. Like, I was working 15, 18-hour days because it's just the way it is, right? But my wife and I knew that was the way it was going to be. And fortunately, we have a very, very, very supportive community and a great staff behind me that allow me now to be able to step away and take the time that I want to take to be able to be home with my family make the most of the time I have. Yeah.
I feel as though the longer we look at how things have kind of played out in the wake of COVID-19 and this pandemic that's been, kind of setting everybody back and changing everybody's lives so much, we couldn't be more fortunate that our state made the legal changes that needed to be made for business models like yours to exist. Because prior to 2015, when you couldn't sell pints to a consumer, you couldn't have a real retail operation out of your own brewery. It would have been a much harder way for businesses to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the governor and the comptroller have done great things to make sure that even the restrictions that we have now have been eased a little bit to give you more freedoms and more capabilities to keep your business running. So I just like to point that out. The landscape really has altered in the benefit of what this industry is doing. And we all know there's more work to be done, but we can't be upset with where we are right now for certain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's baby steps really. You can't change things in a day, right? And I think, especially given the current circumstances, we're seeing the sort of things that will need to kind of take place in the months and years to come that will kind of protect us and keep us moving forward. And, we'll leave it at that. There you go.
There you go. I like it. So you have a great lineup of beer that you've shared with me that you'd like to talk about today. Do you just want to tell me which one you want to start with? I'll pop up the graphic for it, and you can talk about that beer and tell people all about it and where they can get it. And obviously where they can get it is at Saints Row. So we have a lineup of 5. The first one we're going to start with was our pale lager. So it's a Keller beer. We tapped this one. Shoot, if I remember, it must have been a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month ago. It's just a pale, unfiltered lager. Traditional German yeast, all Pilsner malt based with, a hint of like Vienna malt and things like that. But one of the things that we really wanted to do was kind of, Keller beers are, malt forward, not sweet, a little bit of graininess, but we actually hopped this with a blend of Mandarina Bavaria and whole melon to kind of enhance that kind of grainy sweetness with hints of a little bit of melon, honeydew, and a little bit of citrus. We can see it here. There you go. It's got a nice grainy sweetness to it, but it's not cloying sweet. You use like that nice cracker, like golden kind of break bread. And it has some of that honeydew kind of hop flavor. Not overpowering. I really love that concept of almost like the fruit cocktail characteristic that you would get from those 2 hop compilations. Like that marriage is just, it's so appetizing. Like I'm thinking about it right now, hearing what you just said. I'm like, man, that's brilliant. What a great way to bring those 2 characteristics together. Yeah, we felt like it really worked because Keller beers are traditionally, the unfiltered style, being really young, the hop kind of really maintains. It's a lot fresher of a lager, so you're going to get more of the hop flavors and aromas. And we really wanted to pick 2 hops that went well together, but also kind of retain some of that traditional German kind of quality to it. And so we, Mandarina and whole melon, and it really, I found it really works well. You got that nice base, clean, grainy malt character, but then there's a little bit of that hop flourish on the back end. It's really kind of not really heavy bitterness, but you get enough bitterness to kind of keep it fresh, keep that bite to kind of keep it clean. And so this is actually one in a series we've done. And it's 355 right here in Montgomery County is one of the major roads that goes, south to north or south in the county. And so all of our lagers have kind of been in that kind of vein, really approachable, like 5% lagers. First one we did was just a straight Pilsner, a German Pils. And we've done a couple of those since then. So we just wanted something that's really approachable, really drinkable, and just you kind of keep going back to it. So it was kind of fun to do this one. It's had a little bit more hop character than some of our other iterations have. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. And that's actually the one that I have after a long day. I'll go ahead and pour myself one of those, and it's just really refreshing. And it worked really well in the heat of summer. Fortunately, we're kind of coming out of that. And so our lineup is changing to reflect that as well. I also like the thinking here now because I'm thinking about this kind of a boost of bitterness that you mentioned, and it's making me feel like this beer would kind of stand up to a few more food styles than you would traditionally just place a Pilsner with. Something typically light is something you would kind of steer somebody towards the Pilsner, something that you want that really crisp finish. But with this, it seems like it would probably have the ability to stand up to something a little more fatty and give you kind of a more rounded experience with food. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the whole, seafood weekend and whatnot. This could go a lot of different ways. It does have that sort of that citrus and honeydew finish to it. So talking about like things like traditional street tacos. You got a little bit more meat on there. You don't just have to do fish. Something dry or white. So this is a very versatile beer, and it's actually a variant of one of our kind of 4 beers. This one behind me. It's our Pacific Lager, which is it's a very similar recipe, but this one features a couple different hops as well. But it's very versatile, super drinkable, enough flavor that you can kind of drink it on its own, or if something that you want to be drinking while eating food. Like it's very goes a lot of ways.
What are your carryout options for folks? Is that available in 4-packs, 6-packs?
Yeah. So the way we do it is we actually have a web store, so saintsrowbeer.com/beers to go. And anything that we have available will be listed there. So it's usually, we actually will cut those down to 2-packs. If you only want 2 beers, you can get a 2-pack, you can get a crowler, or you can get a 4-pack. And we'll fill those on demand. So you place your orders between 12 and 4. If you place an order before 4, you can pick it up that evening after 5 o'clock. And so we'll fill those on demand. Once we get to the last keg of something, we will take it off the store because we don't want to, we are still running our tap room 6 days a week with limited seating. So we want to make sure we have enough product to take care of all our patients who are coming in-house and sitting in the patio and whatnot. But so anything we have on that's available for carryout is listed on the website there. And anytime we have something new that becomes available, go ahead and make an announcement. So our Instagram, our Facebook are the best places to see what we have coming out.
Yeah, you guys have a very great Instagram presence. I see your new releases popping up all the time. You're playful. You've got some whimsy behind you, so I really enjoy all of that.
We try.
I just wanted to say I want to compliment you on this model of being able to break down all the way to like a 2-pack of 16-ounce cans. Like, what a brilliant idea, and a great way to get people to kind of like think about how they want to put their experience together drinking your beer.
Right. Yeah, and I think that really the credit goes to our staff. Our bartenders who are here working. Like, they get here in the afternoon, and they're, at the beginning of the pandemic, March through June, before we were able to kind of open back up, and these guys were hustling. They were here filling hundreds of orders a day, and these are all to order because we're primarily a taproom facility. We were filling all these on demand day of, so we didn't have a whole lot of we didn't have cases upon cases ready to go. And we could just kind of pull those and whatnot. We were just, we were trying to figure out how we were going to survive, and that was the way we did it. We had to fill on demand off our taps, and to our staff's credit, they've made it work, and they've kept us afloat. So we figured, why not? Like, people don't necessarily want to have to buy a 4-pack, so why not just get 2?
I found myself in that position today. I'm visiting in Williamsburg, the local brewery here, and they were out of 4-packs of a specific style, but they're offering, the 25-ounce crowlers right now. And I'm like, that's a really good way for me to be able to kind of spread out my investment and what's going on for the next 24 hours of what I want to drink.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Sorry, my 3-year-old is in the background having a very good time, and she's
that's great.
She might photobomb us in a minute, so I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Not a problem. I totally understand. Fortunately, I'm working from the brewery today, so you won't see my kids. But they would definitely be all up in. They would be all up in here if they had the chance.
I think that maybe one of these Fridays, I'm just going to have to get everybody with kids on, and we'll just let our kids talk.
There you go. I know. I don't know them personally, but I feel like the guys from Attaboy, our kids, I think, were around the same age, and they kind of did the same thing. Like, my daughter was maybe 1 when we finally opened the doors to our facility. You know what I mean? So we kind of in that weird thing where we started a business, had kids, and just kind of kept it going all at the same time.
You gotta love it. So what's the next beer on the lineup that you'd like to talk about today?
Yeah, so next one we're going to go do is actually the next in our 355 series. This is actually our Oktoberfest. Hard to see here, but this is our Oktoberfest. There you go. And this one, for us, we want to do something just a little different. We actually brewed this with almost 100% of our base malt was Munich malt. So Munich malt has got a little bit more of a bready character than our standard Pilsner malt or Vienna malt. So we brewed this with about 97, 98% Munich malt. It gives it a really nice depth. It's a lot more robust maltiness to it without being sweet. It's got that really fresh baked bread, And then on the back end, it finishes with like a little bit more of a roasted finish than your traditional Oktoberfest go. And the reason we did this one this way is we really kind of wanted to harken back to the old Oktoberfest before kind of the fest beer. Hi. There we go. Before the fest beer style kind of became the norm for Oktoberfest in Germany. So we went with this all Munich malt base. It has a hint of Cara Munich for some of that, like a little bit more of a caramel to it, and depth of flavor and profile. But this is also, it's just, it's got a nice maltiness to it, but it finishes dry, finishes clean. It's clear, as I like to say. Sometimes don't fear clear beer, but this was fun. We just love being able to have the opportunity to do these lagers because, whenever we were really humming along, pre-COVID, we couldn't afford to take up tank space, and now that we're things are slowing down a little bit, we had the opportunity to kind of put some things down and put some things away for a while. And so it was kind of cool to be able to hit the timing on this. So this actually just came out this week. We tapped it on Wednesday. Cans are available actually starting today. And my staff is busy away filling cases because the orders are coming in. But this was fun. I love it. Like I will be taking home a crowler of this tonight. Whenever I get home, we'll have food at home. I think we're probably having chili. So I'll take this home tonight and we'll crack it open. My wife and I will share it and we'll enjoy it immensely.
The weather is definitely starting to cooperate with the Oktoberfest, the Märtzens. Like this style is really starting to turn around and make everybody really appreciate the fact that the nights are getting a little cooler and we've had some days that aren't scorching. So it's great stuff.
Yeah. I'm really stubborn and I insisted on, I have to wear a hoodie even though it's still 77, 78. But in my mind, I'm convinced myself it's fall, right? Like I am a fall guy through and through. The summer is my least favorite time of year. So I'm stubborn to a fault. And I'm just like, no, it's time for darker beers. It's time for, campfires and things like that. So I'm definitely excited for the weeks and months ahead.
I'm with you, and I will follow your calendar wherever it goes because I prefer the cooler nights and the smoky evenings of the campfire.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So the Oktoberfest had a great brilliance. It looks like a traditional Oktoberfest visually. I did want to just pop back to the Keller beer because it looks like it's pretty bright too. So are you letting that rest and allowing everything to fall out?
Yeah, I mean, so we didn't lager this as long as our other ones, usually our other lagers go for. We also we didn't add any sort of fining to this one, the Keller beer. We just let it naturally fall out in our walking and whatnot. And so when we first served it, it had some. It wasn't as clear. It's just cleared up over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's obviously we still have it on tap. It's just clearing up as we continue going through it. So. But it's still got a nice clarity to it. You can see my finger through there.
Despite the amount of attention that the hazy styles and the cloudier, more turbid beers are getting, there still are some purists out there that if they see they see a beer that says lager, they're not going to be the most enthusiastic if it has a whole lot of turbidity or solids or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very impressed. It's a beautiful looking beer.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So I'll actually go to our next one if you go with that.
Yeah, please. I was going to say, I'm looking at the list and my mouth keeps watering, so please tell me more.
Yeah, so this is our Cuban coffee milk stout. So it's called Bebo and Cachao. As I mentioned, my family is from Central and South America, and so this one is based on a traditional Cuban coffee or cortado, If you ever watch somebody make a real Cuban coffee, they actually whip sugar in the first runnings of coffee to kind of create that real foam. It's hand whipped, and then they'll go ahead and pour the coffee on top of it. So it's got a sweetness to it. It's we obviously back sweeten it a little bit with a little bit of lactose, so it's some milk sugar. It's a milk stout. It's got some of that nice kind of silky texture to it that you would find in a traditional Cuban coffee. It's very coffee forward without being a lot of coffee bitterness. I don't drink coffee myself because for some reason, I like IPAs, I like coffee beers, but I cannot deal with coffee bitterness for some reason. But it's got a lot of these dark coffee notes because we actually use, like I said, Mayorga Organics, which is up the street from us. It's a coffee roaster. They have a new facility in Miami. I mean, they're great people to work with. So if you are in the Rockville area, you should check Mayorga Organics out or order them online because I love those guys there. They have a very similar mindset when it comes to trying to lift people up from the Latin American community, kind of paying homage to those roots and kind of making sure that those people are they do direct to farmer. So they work with the farmers down there, and they really kind of help them develop their coffee program and like growing other plants to kind of help sustain themselves through difficult times. Anyway, I can go on and on about those guys. I love them. They're great to work with. But so we use their Cuban coffee. So it's a dark roast. So you get it, and we use whole bean. So we actually just use whole bean, and we steep it right before we transfer for packaging. That way we're not picking up a whole lot of astringency from the coffee like you might find sometimes. And we're getting a lot of aromatics, a lot of the nice depth of coffee flavor to it. And it's based on a traditional Cuban coffee. So if you've ever drinking one of those, you'll know that you get some sweetness, you get a lot of that kind of coffee note forward, and it's not going to have a lot of bitterness. And this is one of the few that we've done as we celebrate this month for our anniversary. It's one of the few that we've done multiple times throughout the last 3 years. We for the first 3 years, we've had very few repeat brews, and the ones that we do repeat are usually one of the ones that you'll find right here behind me. So some of our core beers, they say, right? And this is one of them. So I think we've done this like 3 or 4 times in the last almost 3 years. And it's a favorite of mine. My wife loves the dark beers, so it's a favorite of hers. And a lot of our regulars are happy to see it back. And it's always good to be able to support our guys up the street because they make an excellent product. So here's to the guys at Mayorga.
So as you enjoy that sip, I'm going to ask you if you have the same propensity to have a lack of affinity for dark roasted malt as you do for coffee. I'm wondering if there's something about that acridity that comes from the roast.
Maybe there is. I wouldn't know. So here at our facility, even for a couple of our beers, we'll actually opt to use specialty roasted dark malt. So we use Carafa, which is a dark roasted malt. There's a specialty Carafa where the husk is removed after the roasting process to kind of subdue some of those really like burnt or acid characters. And we use a lot of that here, and it may very well just be because I'm not very really into that really like harsh dark roast. We also use it in like some of our dark lagers because you want some of that nice dark character without it being overly like harsh and bitter. And so it very well could be that, and if we don't have like things that we do have roasted barley, obviously we'll do a dry stout and things like that. So we'll use it, but for the most part, I prefer to use things like pale chocolate or the specialty Carafa, which is dehusked to kind of remove that really like carbonic type thing, that really burnt, as they say, character from the malt.
I also find it very interesting, your approach to how you're adding the coffee. I like the fact that your thought is not to bring a lot of that super stringent bitterness that you can get into the profile of the beer. For people who may be watching and don't know, there are a lot of approaches to adding these ingredients that you wouldn't traditionally find in a beer. And some people will actually do like a hot brew or a cold brew of a coffee and then pump that coffee into a wort stream. There seems to be a lot more breweries that are approaching this idea of using the coffee as either a secondary addition or post-secondary and bringing the coffee in as something that will be almost like a flavor enhancer or change right before the beer goes into package as a finished beer. So thank you for sharing.
One of the reasons, great. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we decided to go with the steeping of whole beans is really the control over the flavor. So as soon as we get the flavor we want, we can remove the liquid from those beans. Also, just the concern with hot brewing coffee does bring out a lot of those harsher flavors, and then cold brew coffee is a lot more subtle. But then there's a lot more steps in order to make cold brew coffee. I mean, you have to. If you don't boil your water first and then cool it down, there's a potential to pick up oxygen in your water. I mean, things like that we never actually tested it, but we wanted to make sure we eliminate any potential for oxygen pickup in our beers and things like that for obvious reasons, right? We're getting ready to open up here, so you'll hear some things going on. But so we've landed on just actual steeping of the whole beans themselves, mostly just because there's a lot more control for us. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, obviously. Yeah.
I've also found it to be quite fascinating that several of the very good and satisfying. I'm a coffee drinker. I love coffee. I could drink a lot of coffee every morning by myself. Most of the coffee beers that I've found that are the best or have some of the most appealing characteristics to them are brewed by people who are not coffee drinkers. So I find that to be pretty fascinating.
I feel like maybe coffee purists are just like forgiving when it comes to coffee. Like, oh, it tastes like coffee. Whereas people who don't like coffee are like, I only want the best parts of what coffee tastes like. You know what I mean?
I think you might be onto something there, and I totally appreciate the approach that you might be lending to that. Fact. Is next going to be our Requiem of Vanilla?
Yes. So this is so we had a staff member. She's actually started with an intern as us. Oh, sorry, started with us as an intern. Shoot, she just turned 21. She turned 21 not a couple of weeks ago, and she started with us as an intern in the back. She was learning, cellaring, learning how cleaning tanks, whenever she was home from school. And so she's been with us from the beginning, essentially. And she was turning 21. I was like, well, let's do a special beer for you. Obviously, 21 is a big year in the industry, right? And I was like, what do you want us to brew for you? And she said, well, I would love a vanilla IPA. We've done a couple different versions of our vanilla IPAs over the last couple of years. So there's Vanilla Connection, which is based off of our hazy IPA, Rainbow Connection. And then we had Silky Vanilla Pillows, which was a double IPA version. So I figured the next step was we had to do a triple IPA version. And this being a birthday beer, we really kind of were trying to go for a vanilla funfetti kind of character to it. So triple IPAs kind of lend themselves to be a little bit sweeter. I mean, at that point, you're really putting the malt in there. It's got a very yellow cake and vanilla nose to it. If that makes any sense, you really just got to try it. Like it's just hard to explain. You just got to try it. But we used hand processed vanilla beans. So I processed over a pound of vanilla for a 3-barrel batch, and we steeped those for a couple days with our. This is actually a 4-hop blend, if I remember them all. Sabro, Southern Passion, Lotus, and there's one other one which I can't remember off the top of my head. But everything that went into this beer kind of harkens to coconut cream, vanilla, tropical fruit, and that's what this little guy is right here. So it's a 9% triple IPA. It's got a very kind of creamsicle nose to it. Really soft body, almost silky-like. And this one, we also intentionally had a somewhat softer carbonation to it to kind of really enhance that body and mouthfeel whenever you're drinking it. And that was essentially, it was like our birthday cake beer. Without actually adding crazy things like donuts or birthday cake into it, we hopped it with hops that kind of lend themselves to that flavor profile and used a whole lot of vanilla.
Well, to your staff member or intern there, happy belated birthday, and that sounds like one hell of a birthday cake to receive. It is not your boxed yellow cake, but I definitely like. As you're talking about all these flavors, like my mouth is going, all right, I'm screaming yellow cake, I'm screaming frosting with like the conversation about the creamsicle approach and the texture. Like you're making me thirsty, Tony. You're not supposed to do that.
It's good. It's good. This one's going to be out soon. I think we're on the last keg or two. So I think right now we have crowlers listed on the website, but we might be taking those out soon because this is going fast. This is also like I said, this one in a series that we've done before. It's the same base as our Rainbow Connection, which is like our standard hazy IPA we do here. But we've kind of just added more malt of everything to kind of just boost the ABV on it. And it's I mean, if you've been with us, if you've hung out with us, you've seen every different iteration of this. It's just a fun beer. We all enjoy it. Our staff is always happy whenever they see a vanilla one come back out. It's just been a lot of fun to have, and people love seeing it.
That's awesome. And I don't want to rush, but we are about 10 minutes from when we normally end.
Yes.
I know you guys are opening up, so I want to make sure we get through this last beer for you, and I want you to have all the time you need to talk about how people can support you. So, there you are.
So this is our Don't Haze Me Bro. It's a tart Kolsch. It was actually started out when we first did this one a year ago as just a standard Kolsch. When it came time to brew it again this summer, we were looking at our lineup, and there was something on our lineup that was missing, and we haven't had a tart beer or sour beer in a little while. And so we figured let's do something a little different with this one. So it uses traditional Kolsch yeast, which provides a really nice, crisp, clean character with like a little bit of hints of fruit. Not sweet fruit, but a little bit of fruit. And we just went all in. We did grapefruit, lemon, lime zest, and we juiced all those as well and threw those in there as well. So it's essentially, this is very similar to our Keller beer, but it's got a lot more of like a nice tart, crisp finish to it. So it's very much kind of like, if I was going to be doing a natural tasting, this would be my palate cleanser. It's got like a nice grapefruit nose to it, and a really clean acidity, if that makes any sense. It's not as tart as like a Goza's would be, or like a Berliner. It's got a nice back end of acidity to it. Very refreshing. It's only 4.8%, really light and dry, airy, and easy to kind of drink. If you, on the weekend with seafood, you can put a couple of these down and whatnot. So this was a fun one that we've done a couple times, and people have really enjoyed it. But this year, we just changed it up a little bit and made it slightly tart. All citra hopped as well. So,
for people who may not be familiar with the style, with the traditional Kelch style beer, you'll normally get like this green apple acidity kind of in the finish from the yeast, and it's this brilliant way to kind of clean up everything that you've just had. Are you doing a lactic kettle sour on that? Is that kind of what's happening for this shortened period of time?
Yeah, so traditionally, whenever we do a kettle sour, we usually go about 48 hours. On this one, we went less than 18 hours. So it was one of those things that, I brew it, like on a Thursday night, and I come back in Friday morning, and we'll go ahead and boil that off to kill any of the bacteria that were souring. So we get like a nice light acidity to it. It's not really in your face, mouth pucker or anything like that. It's just a little bit of acidity to kind of clean the palate up, just give you a little taste for something more. Just kind of make it more of a thirst quenching kind of experience.
I love that. It almost just adds that pop to the finish instead of being something that's going to like really sit on the palate as something sour. That's great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are getting ready to open. I hear people honking their horns to get in there already.
Yeah, they're waiting. They're waiting. Well, we have the can release of the Oktoberfest today, and it's not a sexy beer, but it's the time of year, right? So people are gearing up and ready for it. Yeah.
So, what are your hours this weekend, and how can people come and support your business?
Yeah, so we're open Monday through Friday from 4 to 8 in the tap room, and then Saturdays from 12 to 8 in the tap room. If you order anytime before 4 o'clock, you can get same-day pickup. And, you can get that at saintsrowbeer.com /beers to go. If you do go to that site, you can also probably find we have reservations. So if you are hesitant to kind of just come out and on the whim and whatnot, you can reserve a table. All our tables are obviously spaced accordingly and whatnot. You can make a reservation. We'll hold it for you. We'll make sure that at your hour, your assigned slot, you'll have a clean table ready to go. Our staff is ready to see you. We have, contactless pickup, all that sort of stuff. But just, check us out, all our social media feeds. If you want to know anything, we do have a listserv. So if you sign up at saintsrowbeer.com, you'll get email notifications if you're not like a social media person. Anything that we have to make announcements for, like our anniversary party, which is coming up on the 26th. We have a couple tables left for that. But if you want to know anything about that, saintsrowbeer.com, you can sign up for emails, and we'll send you notifications for big releases, big events, things like that.
Very cool. Well, Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know it's only an hour, but your time is under a lot of demand there. Running that business with your wife.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for talking about your great beers. Thanks. And happy early anniversary to everybody who tuned in this afternoon, or if you're tuning in later. Please show your support for Tony and his family at Saints Row. Obviously, some kick-ass looking beers. Everything that you talked about today sounds delicious and unique. So get out there, show your love. Breweries throughout the state are open this weekend. Pair some Maryland beer with Maryland seafood tomorrow. Show your support for the governor's initiative to buy Maryland seafood. And thank you all very much for tuning in. MarylandBeer.org is where you can find all of our information and updates about the industry. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Show your love for Saints Row on social media, and tune in next week. We look forward to talking to you. Have a great weekend.